So the first lesson is that the linear life is dead. The second lesson is that the nonlinear life involves many life transitions. I've analyzed 20,000 destabilizing life events. What I found is that each of us goes through 36 of what I call disruptors in the course of our lives. That's one every 12 to 18 months. A disruptor is an event or experience that interrupts the everyday flow of our lives. Many disruptors, like adopting a child or starting a job, would not traditionally be defined as negative. And yet, they're still disruptive. As the parent of twins, I can assure you, the experience was joyful but destabilizing. Even customarily negative life events like losing a spouse or being fired sometimes become catalysts for reinvention. Disruptors are simply deviations from daily life. Now, most of these disruptors we get through with relative ease. Turns out we're pretty good at navigating change. But 1 in 10 becomes what I call a lifequake, a massive burst of change that leads to a period of upheaval, transition, and renewal. What makes a disruptor a lifequake? Well, one thing is timing. Sometimes a disruptor comes along at a moment of particular vulnerability and provides just enough spark to ignite a major change. Or sometimes a disruptor falls at the end of a long string of disruptors and becomes the last straw. But for whatever reason, a lot of lifequakes involve a clumping of disruptors. We get into what I call a pileup. Like the movies, there are 2-car pileups. I spoke to a woman whose grief over losing her father was so great she quit her job in journalism to become a mortician. There are 3-car pileups. A man I spoke with was in his 50s. When his marriage failed, he moved back home from New York City to Nebraska, where he learned he was adopted. These clumpings could be coincidences, but I think a better way of looking at them is that our immune system gets weakened by one disruptor, so that when another 1 or 2 come along, our entire identity gets the flu. Like disruptors, not all lifequakes are negative. I graphed every lifequake on 2 poles. The first pole was voluntary versus involuntary. 57% were involuntary. You get sick, you lose your job, your spouse cheats on you. 43% were voluntary. You decide to move, you quit your job, you cheat on your spouse. The other pole was personal versus collective. Personal is something that involves only you. Collective happens to the whole community, like a war, a natural disaster, or a recession. What's unique about the pandemic and its aftermath is that for the first time in a century, the entire planet has been going through a lifequake at the same time. How many lifequakes do we experience? 3 to 5 in the course of our lives. But here's the key piece of data. The average length of a lifequake is 5 years. Do the math, and that means we spend 25 years, half of our adult lives, in a state of transition. We need to get better at these. Why do we struggle with them? 2 reasons, I'd say. 1, we're still haunted by the ghost of linearity. We have non-linear lives, but linear expectations. We know that the old industrial economy has gone away. We have the internet, disruptive technologies, a networked world. But we haven't updated our expectations of how we live. 2, life transitions are a lifetime skill that no one is teaching us how to play. That brings us to the third and final lesson, and the purpose of this course.